Okay. So, just for the purpose of the recording, whoops, just go share screen. Here we go. Good. So, for the purpose of the recording, my name's Andrew Priestley. I'm a business coach. I work with clients worldwide. One of the products that I have is a valuation or a value strategy, and it's really I'm looking at a business and I'm saying, okay, where's the value actually delivered, and importantly, where are they leaving money on the table? And the starting point for me usually is that I start with a review of things like their website, their social media. I look at things like Facebook. I look at things like LinkedIn, particularly Facebook and LinkedIn, and the website. And I'll have a really good look at that. And then offline, I'll have a look at brochures. And the one thing that I find is invariably is I look at a lot of websites where I have no idea what it is that the person does. And I'm really struggling to understand what they're about. Okay. So I started to read up about this and sort of over a couple of years started to think about, okay, well, what is it that makes somebody, we talk about, I'm having SEO, I've got traffic building things, I've got CRMs, I've got ClickFunnels, all that stuff. And I know people who've spent a lot of money on those particular tools and they still don't get the business. And these are really, really smart people. So I'm looking at their websites thinking, is it clear to me what they're up to? And the answer to that was, it wasn't clear to me. So I started to research this. So one of the questions, you may have watched the video by Simon Sinek, Start with the Why. You've probably seen that, right? And one of the things he says is start with your why, start with your values. And I also do some work with Dent Global. And one of the things we talk about is your value foundation. And importantly, what are the values that actually sit behind your business? Because we have this idea, and it's true that we think it is, that you get clients because people understand and value what you're up to. Okay. And so it's how clearly can I express what my values are, and how well do I express that online, particularly when I'm talking to people. So I started doing a lot of research, and a fellow that I ran into was a guy called Jim Stengel, and he wrote a book called Grow. Now, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but it's a great read. It's a really, really well-researched book. And what Jim did was that he did a longitudinal study over, I would say, from 2001 to about 2013, and then he extended another 3 years to 2016. And he looked at businesses globally, and in particular, what he was trying to ask was, do values pay in business? Does a clear explanation of what you do in your values pay off in business? And his conclusion was, yes, it does. Without a doubt, it certainly does, right? So the rest of the book explains why he supports that, okay? So some of the questions that go through the minds of my clients and the ones that Jim explored is, who are our target clients? What do we stand for in our target clients' minds? What matters most to our target clients? How are we improving their lives? How are we helping them? And what Jim found was that of the 50-odd thousand businesses that he reviewed, the number one thing that came out was that people want to help their clients. But he found that was just a little bit generic to say everyone says we help people, right? But he wanted to know, well, what specifically were they saying in their marketing that attracted the clients? What resonated with target clients? How did they make them stand out, their values stand out in the minds of their target client? And what did matter most to the target clients? He was asking those sort of things. And then he asked questions like, do customers connect and bond more with companies or brands with clear values? And these are great questions, to consider yourself, right? Are the connections that people form within companies with a core value a significant driver of revenues and growth? So these are really key questions. He was trying to see, is there a relationship between your values and revenue growth, right? And then importantly, what specific values actually drive the most growth? And can any business benefit from a values-based business concept, or is it just big businesses? So these were some key questions that he was asking for his global study, right? In reading the book, I was fascinated because I immediately got hooked into it. And obviously one outcome of this is you're probably going to go onto Amazon, and I suggest you buy one of the seconds. They're about 4p you can buy this book for. But it's a great little read, right? particularly if you're interested in this connection between values and growth. What he found was, repeatedly, even through the global financial crisis, those companies that had double-digit growth, the highest growth businesses clearly communicate their values and core brand idea through a big message that's consistent with their brand ideal or their brand values, right? So he's saying that the highest growth businesses can clearly communicate their values. And I got really fascinated by this. So I'm really now leaning into his case studies, and I want to see examples. And he gives some great case studies of how this, of great examples of how people have done that, right? And the important part was, the insight that I got was, a clear brand ideal helps a client find their voice. And I wanted to test this with my clients. So I'm asking them, okay, my challenge was, can I identify the clear brand ideal, and does that help them find their voice? Now, the voice is a really important part, because it's really how you show up online and how you sound online. So you've probably looked at websites. I mean, I do this all day, every day. I meet people who online, they look incredible, and then I meet them and the story's not the same, right? Or they're telling me one thing online, but when I meet them, the real message is something entirely different. And that I developed a process for really identifying where's the real value delivered. And the thing that I found was that when people find their voice and their big message, or when they find their big message, they find their voice. They communicate so much more congruently and consistently right across the whole spectrum. So that's what I was fascinated by. So this is what the extensive research shows about higher performing businesses. Number one, they discovered their brand ideal for improving people's lives meets one of several key fundamental human values. Now, in particular, Jim identified a whole range of human values that resonate, but he actually narrowed it down to just 5. Okay, so one of those is going to be yours, and I'm going to tell you what they are in a moment, right? And then the organisation would build their organisational culture around that brand value. And I'm going to give you an example of it. So here's a quick example for you. Disney's brand ideal or brand value is joy or happiness, right? So Disney, their organisational culture is built around this concept that it's the happiest place on earth. It's the happy kingdom. And they do that incredibly well, right? Another one is Apple is around self-expression or discovery. Or if you look at their messaging, what you hear is the self-expression or the discovery message that goes through all of their, all of their marketing. It's how could you do this better? So it's a real discovery. A discovery brand is how can I? You're answering that question, how can I do this? But importantly, they can clearly communicate that ideal to engage employees and customers. And importantly here, it's employees and customers, right? And I would also include their stakeholders like suppliers, for example. And then they deliver ideal-based customer experiences. So it might be interesting for us to actually interview Naeem at some point, because he's all about the customer experience. That's what his consultancy is about, helping people develop amazing customer experiences. But what Jim found was that when the customer experience is based on your ideal and based around the ideal, what happens is you get a far superior customer experience. And then they measure their progress against that ideal. So it was important for Jim not only to have this idea of what's your values and build a culture around it and communicate that and deliver on that, but also, is it working? So he was really important to make sure, what are the metrics we're going to put in place to do that? Okay, so he goes into that in detail. So here's the 5 values. These are the ones that he identified through extensive, and he's done repeated research into this, and it keeps coming back with the same 5. So the first value that we resonate with, and these are core human fundamental values that we actually engage with and resonate with, right? So number 1 is to be happy. What's my experience of happiness, joy, wonder, possibility, right? Second one is to connect with others, or connection. So it's enhancing the ability for people to connect, relate, and engage in meaningful ways. So for example, Starbucks is a connection brand. Pizza Hut is a connection brand. So if you will look at their marketing, so Pizza Hut, for example, Jim gives an example of how Pizza Hut strayed from that brand value of connection. They went for something else, and they've come back to it. And as soon as they came back to it, they started to gain audience share again. And one of the things that Jim asked Pizza Hut was, how did this business get started? And originally Pizza Hut was a group of guys who said, let's cook some pizzas for mum. And then they turned that into a concept on a Friday night. Instead of mum doing cooking, we'll take her out for something. And it was that simple, where they could sit around as a family and have a night out. Get the idea? So it was about connection. And Starbucks is all about, their whole culture is around this connection thing. The third one is to explore, discover and grow, which is enhancing people's ability to discover and explore new possibilities, which is Apple. Okay. The fourth one is an interesting one. It's pride or respect or to be revered. And this is giving people increased confidence, stability, strength, or a sense of security through something that's reputable. So if you think of luxury brands, like Mercedes is a respect brand. Louis Vuitton is a respect brand. Okay. And the last one is to make a difference or an impact, enhancing the lives of others. So people wanting to make a difference. Okay. So let's have a look at some of the brands and how that relates. So to be happy, the branding companies who are really all about happiness is Coca-Cola, Emirates, Lindt Chocolate, Moe, Disney. They're all happy brands, right? That's their core value is joy or happiness. Connection, relationships, and engagement is BlackBerry, although I think BlackBerry doesn't exist anymore, does it? I'm not sure. Or it's on the down. But FedEx is a connection brand, obviously. Starbucks, Natura, Pizza Hut. And these are big brands as well. And the reason Jim uses big brands is because he can show examples of them and people would be very familiar with these brands. Okay? To learn, explore, discover and grow is all about Amazon, Apple, Google, Samsung, eBay, right? So you're discovering. To be proud, respect and revered is Heineken, Hugo Boss, Target, Mercedes. To make a difference, Accenture. And the one down the bottom there is Dent. So my son's business, Dent Global, is all about making a difference. And they are really clear on that's their brand value. So Jim's book is really impressive. And I got all the way through the book and I'm thinking, look, I really love this information, but which one am I? Right? So I'm sitting there going, I wonder which one am I? And the book doesn't tell you how to work out which one's you. It just tells you what the 5 fundamentals are and leaves it pretty much up to the reader to try and discover which one of these they are, right? Now, at the moment, you might have a hunch just by looking at this. You might have a gut feel for which one's you already by looking at the list, right? So take a moment just so you get a sense of which one feels right to you. Which, like, if without going too much into research here, which one, and if you want to share, just wave at me because I just want to get some feedback on this before we go any further. So just get a sense. So I'm just unmuting Ian there. Hi, Ian.
Make a difference is the one that feels right for me, Andrew.
Yeah. To make a difference. Yeah,
yeah,
great. So you're going to have an impact, make a difference. Great.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Jackie, have you got an idea?
I'm muted. I've just suddenly lost the picture on here, but I think to explore, discover and grow.
Yeah, great. And I don't know if Naeem's with us or not, but I would probably... Are you there, Naeem, or not? Let me just see if he's there.
It's to connect and engage, isn't it?
To connect and engage, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with that one.
Yeah, right. So this is the problem that I had. Which one is me, right? Because he doesn't tell you which one's you. He just says, okay, one of these is you and you're left on your own to figure that out. Well, my background was industrial organisational psych, and part of my psych degree was to actually build profiling tools. So if you've seen the sales profile or the leadership profile, or if you've done the Dent KPI profile, for example, then you'll get a bit of an example about that. But I wanted something that I could beta test with clients, and so I did something that they could self-correct. In other words, they didn't have to fill out something and send it off. They could get the information. So what I did was I went through the book many, many times, and I started to pull out the key patterns that I could, and I put it into a report called Your Core Ideal and Message. And then I created a second document called the Core Ideal Quiz, And then because I just did a gleaning of his book to pull out all the core words that related to each of those. So it's almost like a thesaurus for your core ideal. And these are words that you could use as keywords if you were using them in things like your website or using them in your social media or in your brochure. So it's words that you want to incorporate into that reflect your core ideal, that actually allow you to articulate your core ideal and big message a lot more easily, right? So the test I designed was very simple. It was read each row and circle or underline the one word or phrase option that best describes what your business is all about. So you might look at that and go, okay, line 1, we're all about happiness, connecting, visions, building confidence, or improving. And you would choose one of those. So you might say, well, yeah, I'm about happiness, or I'm about visions and dreams, or whatever it was. And then you go to line 2 and say, we're all about community, self-expression, etc. So just take a couple of moments and have a look at those. It's not going to be a long session, by the way, but just take a couple of minutes. So as you see, if you went line by line, the idea is to pick one pairing of words for each line and then circle it or tick it, whichever it was, right? And there's a page of those. So I've just given you a sample of what's in the report there, okay? And then once you've got that, then what you would do is you would then go through on the next page and you would say, right, I answered B, 1B, and so that scored me 2 points. Or if you answered 1D, you get 4 points for it. On the second line, if you answered 1C, you would get 3. You get how the scoring works? You just go through and select it that way. And then what you would do is tally up the number of 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, and you'd get a score down here. So your tally might be 2 1s, 14 2s, 10 3s, 4 4s, and 3 5s. So you can see that what would emerge out of that would be the strongest one that you were resonating was connection, for example. Or if you had whatever the highest score, that's going to be the one that is probably going to resonate the most. Now, occasionally, firstly, what I did was I sent this out to, over a couple of years, I actually issued 200 betas of this. And one of the things that came back was that people came back where they said, well, I had 10 of this and 10 of the other. Which one is me? And so, for example, I had a law firm that I did this with, and they said that we're about making an impact, which we had 11, and connection was 11. So which one are we? So the question I asked them was, do you make an impact to connect, or do you connect to make an impact? And which one of those feels right? So you do a two-way test of those two variables, right? Do you make people happy to make a difference, or do you make a difference so that they can be happy? For example, I had a credit referencing company that had happy and impact as their two shared ones. So usually, if you then go back and look at your marketing, or you'll get a gut feel, you'll say, actually, no, we're about connecting so we can make an impact. Now, interestingly, with that law firm, if you look at the website, it's a very aggressive website. And when I actually asked every one of the 12 partners to individually rate their website, to a person, they all hated the website because they said it's not us. And when I met with them, the sort of way they spoke was sort of like, it's really important to get to know a client and to listen to them. And, the thing that we pride ourselves on, the fact that we take time, we don't charge for a lot of our initial consultations, so we really want to understand. And we then think, who could we connect them with? See the language they're using? It's all connection language, right? It wasn't this, when are you going to take someone to court? And when are you going to do this? And, when are you going to hire the best lawyer? And, that really high impact sort of stuff, right? Now, what I then realized in doing this, and this isn't in the book, there's no quiz, but then I realized the core questions that drive your core value is a central question or a key question. So the key question for happiness is why not? Why not come to Disneyland? Why not come whitewater rafting? Why not bring the kids over here to Euro Disney for summer, right? The key question for connection is who? Who can we talk to? Who could I meet there? Who can I connect with? Who can I relate to? It's a who question. So it's all about people. Learning and exploring discovery is all about how. How can I do this faster? So you can see by this, I'm very much the how brand. It's how can I sort this out? How can I figure this out? My two are how and impact. right? And then to be proud, respected, and revered. I met someone who was a jeweler, and they said, we've been doing this for 4 generations. This was started by my great-grandfather. And, who else would you go to? Why us? Here's why you should choose us. Why us? Because, So that was their central thing. Now, again, their marketing didn't reflect that why us proposition. And then the last one was to make a difference, which is when. When are you going to do it? So my son's business is all about when are you going to write your book? When are you going to improve your marketing? When are you going to do this? When are you going to make the calls? There's that driver. And they do a soft and a hard version of that when question, but there's still a sense of urgency about this. So again, let's just take a quick pit stop. Is this starting to resonate? Getting the idea? So the key 5 fundamentals are joy, connection, discovery, respect, and impact. And the key questions that go with that is why not, connection's about who, discovery is about how, respect is about why us, and impact is about when. So the thing is, if I was doing a marketing review with a client, I'm now reading through this filter of what's the key message that's jumping out at me. Is it joy, connection, respect, discovery, impact? And are they answering that? Is the voice a why not message of why not voice, or is it a who voice, or a how voice, or a why us, or a when voice? And so what you find is that you then start to shape your copy or your content strategy around those central questions. So then I asked, okay, let's test this out. So I did a very small conservative test with the law firm, for example, and on LinkedIn, where we wrote some posts that were focused around connection, and the result was startling. It was people connected to the way they were describing it. Now, one of the things I got them to do when they wrote their post was to write the post out and then read it back to a voice recorder and listen back to it to see how it felt. And if it didn't feel like it was a connection message, to keep tweaking on this until they got it right. And then that message went out. So they did the beta testing of this over about a 6-week period. But what they found was not only they didn't get a lot more traffic, and this is the thing that surprised me. It's not that they got more traffic or got more views, but what they did was they got more inquiries. So, they were putting out posts that were getting maybe 1,500 views, but no inquiries or engagement. But they had posts that went out that got maybe 200 views, but they had 5 or 6 people connect with them and to follow up. So sometimes it's not always I've got to get the most amount of traffic. It's, so Jim Stingle's whole thing is about that we connect and we relate to people if we know what they stand for, if the message resonates. And when you're my quest to you, or my challenge to you, is to really consider which one of those 5 fundamental values is yours. And I'm going to wrap up in a moment. So I'll give you another case study here about the credit referencing agency that I worked with. Now, they thought, actually, no, let me correct myself. I thought they would be an impact brand, because I thought, when are you going to sort your finances out? You get the, like, when are you going to get this, your CRA thing and your Experian number and all that sort of, when are you going to do this? But when they took the test, what really threw me was they all came out as joy. They came out as a joy brand. And I'm thinking, how on earth do you get joy out of credit referencing, right? It just really, really intrigued me. But then when I was talking to them, because you've got to remember that what Jim Stingle did was he actually interviewed people. He interviewed employees. He interviewed the management team. He interviewed customers. And they all had a similar sort of narrative around it. So narrative plays a big part in this, right? But the narrative was the same. And the narrative they all came back with, the 6 people in that company that I spoke to, they all said, this is the story they came back with. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to ring up somebody and tell them that we've cleared their credit reference issues and we can now get them a mortgage. I mean, they cry, we have a little bell in the office, we ring it, we've got another winner, everyone gets excited. There's a lot of joy around the fact that we've done a good job today. See, that's a joy brand. Get it? Now, none of their marketing says that. So again, what we did was we did a very small conservative test on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and also some of the Facebook ads. They did some small tests, and the joy thing rang a bell it resonated with customers. And interestingly, the people who it resonated with, who showed up and became customers, were actually better customers because they actually get you. They're resonating with the same message, right? So in a sense, that adage of birds of a feather flock together has probably a little bit of truth around it. Okay. So isn't it great when your mouse just decides it wants to go on holiday? I can't move the slide because of the damn mouse. Okay. Hang on 1 sec. I'll just change. Fortunately, I have batteries. I have fresh batteries. Hang on, we'll just change those. Isn't that you know it's live? You know it's a pre-recorded live thing. Okay, so here we go. Let's see if that works. There we go. I wasn't expecting my mouse to. Oh. Weird. That is really, really. Oh no, here we go. Now we're back in business. Great, connected. Okay, so so let me stop there. Let's take a couple of seconds. If you've got a comment, any insights or comments at this point, just before we wrap up. So I'll just unmute.
Sense.
Okay.
It all makes absolute common sense to me, Andrew.
Yeah.
I think I've been through this one with you before, and I've sort of forgotten how important it is actually. So I've made a mental note to just redo it and also run through my marketing content.
Yeah. The thing is, Ian, that sometimes it's good to do the test, but it's also then the part B is to do that review and sort of, with the thesaurus document that I've got here.
Yeah.
It's a heart starter where you can say, am I using some of these words? And you might then look at the keywords. I would print out somebody's website and I would get a highlighter and I'd highlight words and I say, what are those? Where do those words live? And sometimes you'll have words that they are joy words, for example, or connection words, and you add them to the list. You build your list. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
So it almost becomes a style guide if you're trying to brief, say, someone working on your marketing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
These are the words that we want to get across. What I find is when you actually go pitch in front of people, if you know you're a joy brand, then you can inject enthusiasm in what you're talking about, for example.
Yeah.
Or if you're a connection brand, you can talk about how important people are to you and how important your customers are, and it'll resonate with the right people.
Yeah, and as you said at the start, it just fits into that Simon Sinek golden circle thing.
Yeah.
People buy why rather than what.
Yeah. Let's go across to Jackie for a moment. Jackie, are you getting in some insights here?
Yes, I mean, I kind of know quite a lot about values. Myself, I do, understand that idea, and I know actually how hard it is. It's one thing understanding this, but it's another thing being able to craft messages that actually do reflect all of those things. It's an art to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of business owners, we're all the same, could end up doing our own copy.
Yeah.
And it's quite hard to, I'm just putting my stuff together for the Walking Business Coach, and I'm enjoying doing it and everything. And it's very much me and very much in line with my values and all the things that I believe in. But it's still quite tough when you're writing your own copy, your own messages and things. You do need to really think about it and make sure that you've got it right.
Well, it's a good point that you make, but in both the cases of the law firm and the credit referencing agency, none of those were copywriters, right? They weren't content strategists or anything like that, and they would be the first to say, we just don't know how to do this. However, they were then able to brief someone who does do that and say, look, what we want to get across is a connection message, or we want to get, That's totally
right. But at least if you've thought through what you might want to get across, because if you don't even do that, the copywriter's not a mind reader, are they?
Well, in the case of the law firm, what you've got is a 22-year-old, nothing against 22-year-olds, but a 22-year-old who's trying to think what would be the angle that I would run with, and they were running for a very heavy-handed, cliche version of, let's be hard-hitting, but it wasn't. But you see, part of their flaw was I felt they didn't take the time to actually go and talk to the people. And the good thing about Jim Stengel's book is he actually gives you his methodology for going and meeting and talking to people, which, you know, I just replicated his methodology of talking to people and interviewing people. Yeah. Okay. So, Naeem, do you have a comment at all?
I'd say really actually enjoyed listening to something else, which was the process you went through there. You had an idea, you sent out the evidence, gathered the data back, and now it becomes something of much more value. So I've actually been writing notes about how you did that process, to be honest.
Yeah.
More than the actual methodology.
Yeah. Well, Naeem, what I wanted was I really liked it. I love research. I love, you know, for me, it's important, you know, and Jackie would probably agree with me, and same with, I know Ian would definitely. And Naeem, reading your book, I know that you're a big fan of doing deep reading on something. You've really done your research and your homework, right? And I think the people on this call, the one thing we all share in common is that we want to do the best by our clients. I hate guesswork and conjecture. And, you know, I wish I was an original thinker, but there's people who are smarter than me out there who've done the hard yards and the research, but I know how to read research, and I like reading research. But a lot of times they don't do what I do, which is how do I make that practical? And so the challenge for me on this was, okay, I love his book, but how do I find which one's me? And that's why I did that report. So this is a bonus for the people on this call. If you don't have this, I'm going to send this as my gift to you for showing up. And if you don't already have it, well, I'll send it to you so you've got this material, okay? But if you're listening on the review of this, or the repeat, or the recording view of this, you can obtain your core ideal and message and everything I talked about, the quiz, and there is a call to action here, and here it is. Okay, go to my website. It's andrewpriestley.com. Go to downloads, your core ideal and big message report, and you can actually access all of that material. You get the report, you've got the quiz, and you've also got the thesaurus as well. It's money well spent, because it'll give it, the people who've done this, and I've been testing this for over 2 years now, and the people who've done it and done the deep dive in it, it's a long report, and they've really read it and they've highlighted it and worked through it carefully, have changed even benign things to the website, and it more than justifies whatever they spent on this. So that's just that's the little call to action there. Okay. The last thing is, if you've got any queries and you say, okay, look, I want to chat with you or connect with you, I'm on LinkedIn, or you can get me at andrewpriestley.com, or you can, if you're in the UK, you can phone me on that number there. At this point, do we have any questions before we wrap up? Short and sweet tonight.
Good, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good stuff. Yep. Good. And Naeem, thanks for your attendance. Appreciate that. And Jackie, same with you. And Morn, you've just arrived. It was fantastic. And I'm sorry we're just about to wrap up, but the recording, I'll make the recording available. I'll put that up on Facebook in the Leadership Gigs. And incidentally, folks, if you're not in Leadership Gigs, then look up Leadership Gigs on Facebook and go there and ask to be invited in, and we'll invite you. It's a closed invitation-only group. And if you look up, search for Leadership Gigs and request an invite, we'll buzz you in. But having said that, thanks for your times, guys. Have a great night. And I think we're talking to Stacey Kehoe next week about her new book on digital marketing called Get Online. So looking forward to that. Have a great night.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.